Hello and welcome. Recent events in Gaza shook the whole world. On Sunday, it was the deadliest day of the week-long conflict. Two Israeli airstrikes in Gaza killed at least 43 Palestinians, including 8 children, injured 50 others, most of whom were civilians, women and children. That was early Sunday. According to the Palestinian Ministry of Health, the death toll in Gaza reached 197, including 58 children and 34 women. At least 1,235 Palestinians have been injured since the beginning of this conflict. But many of us wonders what is the current Israel-Gaza crisis about and where is it heading? It has complex roots in foundation of Israel in 1948 and after the Six-Day War in 1967, when Israel captured then Arab-controlled parts of East Jerusalem, including the Old City and its holy sites. But I want to talk about today's Jerusalem. So Jerusalem is one of the oldest cities in the world, and it's considered holy to the three major religions: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Interesting thing is that both Israel and the Palestinian Authority claim Jerusalem as their capital. Today, the status of Jerusalem remains one of the main issues in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. One of Israel's basic laws, the 1980 Jerusalem Law, refers to Jerusalem as the country's undivided capital. This law was, though, condemned by the international community, which did not recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. All branches of the Israel government are located in Jerusalem, including Parliament, the residence of the Prime Minister and President, and the Supreme Court. Jerusalem splits into 4 quarters: the Jewish quarter, the Christian quarter, the Muslim one, and the Armenian quarter. The city is walled, and you can enter it by one of the 7 entry gates. The smallest quarter is the Armenian quarter. There is about 2.5 Armenians in Jerusalem today. During the Muslim holy month, Israeli government blocked gatherings of Palestinians. They planned as well to evict Palestinians from the East Jerusalem neighborhood. The Al-Aqsa Mosque in the Old City was the flashpoint of the conflict. The Al-Aqsa is the 3rd holiest site in Islam, but is also a holy site for Jews. On April 22nd, hundreds of far-right Israelis paraded in Jerusalem singing "Deaths to Arabs." Almost 100 people were injured in fights on the streets. 50 people were arrested as well. On 24th of April, Gaza fired almost 35 rockets into Israel. No injuries were reported at that time. Israel repaid with helicopter and jet attacks. On May 10th, over 300 Palestinians were injured in a clash with Israeli police at the Al-Aqsa Mosque. On May 11th, Israel launched airstrikes in Gaza, targeting buildings. They thought that the militants were in them buildings. What is international response to escalating violence in Israel-Gaza conflict then. UN Secretary Antonio Guterres, his spokesman said that, um, and I quote here, the Secretary General was saddened by the increasingly large numbers of casualties, including children, from Israeli airstrikes in Gaza and of Israeli fatalities from rockets launched from Gaza. UN spokesman uh, Stefan Dujarric said Israeli security forces must exercise maximum restraint and calibrate their use of force. The indiscriminate launching of rockets and mortars towards Israeli population centers is unacceptable. The White House said Israel had a legitimate right to defend itself from Hamas rockets attacks, but said Jerusalem must be a place of coexistence. White House spokesman Jen Psaki said President Joe Biden's support for Israel's security, for its legitimate right to defend itself and its people, is fundamental and will never waver. The European Union said Palestinian rocket attacks into Israel were totally unacceptable and called on all sides to aim for a de-escalation and to prevent more civilian casualties. UE Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell also condemned evictions of Palestinian families in East Jerusalem, calling them illegal and saying they only serve to fuel tensions. President Vladimir Putin called on the parties to de-escalate tensions and peacefully resolve the emerging issues. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson said the UK is deeply concerned by the growing violence and civilian casualties, and we want to see on urgent the escalation of tensions. That was a quote as well. German Foreign Minister Heiko Maas said that the rocket attack on Israel is absolutely unacceptable and must end immediately. Israel has, in this situation, the right to self-defense. This escalation of violence can be neither tolerated nor accepted. And there's one more thing I want to talk about. What Donald Trump did. Well, on December 6th, 2017, at that time, Donald Trump was president, and he announced that United States recognize Jerusalem as a capital of Israel. He relocated then embassy of Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. That was on 14th of May 2018. And Minister of Israel Benjamin Netanyahu welcomed the decision, of course. Trump's decision was rejected by majority of world leaders, and Secretary of State Rex Tillerson explained that the president's statement did not indicate final status for Jerusalem, and it was very clear that the final status, including the borders, would be left to the two parties to negotiate and decide. Trump's recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital had deep repercussions across the region. It was welcomed by Israel, a close Israel ally, but it triggered violence in the region. Palestinians throughout the West Bank and Gaza held demonstrations burning Israeli and US flags. Trump's actions led to increased hatred, conflict, violence, and suffering in Jerusalem and uh, the Holy Land, moving people from the goal of unity and deeper towards destructive division.